Welcome, everyone, to the newest edition of System Override. How are you this morning, Bri?
I am not bad. I was saying I'm a little phlegmy, so I'm going to try my best to keep it under control. And I just realized as we were starting, I was like, you have such RBF. Like I had to put on my going to man. No, that's great.
It is like the tricky about video, right? It can always catch you in the worst faces.
I
And
have
I
such a
look at
stank face too. Whenever I see photos that I'm not paying attention, I just look like I'm have, a pile of
I'm
poop
the same
or
way.
something. I don't know what my problem.
You know what I think it is well, I've been told this that we have pretty smiles. And so when you don't smile, people are like, "Oh my gosh." And I'm like, "Well,
Are
yeah, but
you
I can't smile all the time." It's just such a difference, right? And
Yeah.
it's not a mean phase. It's just a
The robot's
neutral
turned off
phase.
right now. It's just thinking, it's resting.
Exactly. My favorite thing is when I'm doing some editing is it never fails that it gets clips of you and I with our eyes closed and and no smile. I'm like, with all the miracle things AI can do, it can't tell that your eyes are open. It's
Not
pretty
yet.
funny. Okay, let's jump into it and let's talk about the big ask from last week, which was thinking about how AI improved your value proposition. What did you come up with?
Well, for me as a CEO, I feel like twofold. AI improves my ability to manage outreach and communications in a much more effective way. I can easily, I don't know if you're the same, but I find to think about to write something like just language that's blah is not necessarily the language that needs to be written. And so I find AI just speeds that up so much, creating these kind of things for me, templates, and just because I have to do so much external communication a lot of the time. And then from an internal perspective of the team, using AI just helps me speed up a lot of my turnarounds, especially if it's like a review of something, and I need to give feedback or give you the TLDR, what are the key things? I say what I'm looking for. And, it's the ability so then the team doesn't need to fine tune polish a lot of stuff. Like a whole document could be sent over that's quite lengthy or long. And then I can just easily, understand what's happening, what they're asking without having to just have that add up, add up, add up. So I have found there's a million other ways than that too, even just like email management or connecting all the things, like basically having like a kind of admin support. There's so many things. We can't live without it. I can't go back to the old way of
I
working.
go back.
I can't go back. Don't take it away.
I think that is true. And just a quick question on the creation of copy, emails, that sort of thing. Do you just send that stuff out without checking it, or does it give you a starting point for where you then you briatize it?
We had such a great conversation about this, I think, just the other day. You never, ever, ever, listeners, direct copy and paste something out of an AI output and put it into anything because there is so much risk in that. You still need to have oversight, manage what's coming out of it, recorrect prompts. We've even noticed sometimes working too much in a project, it doesn't give you, it starts to just really percolate on whatever has been built in there over time. um, you need to be paying attention. We are not at a place where this is a Homer Simpson button. Like this is a tool and it helps you, but you need to still be in the driver's seat of what's happening here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd say for me, probably very similar to you, all those kind of things have been really impactful. But when I really sat down this week and thought about how would I talk about myself before and my value proposition before AI
Mhm.
and, since I think the greatest thing I've learned over the past year with AI is it can bring my ideas to life. So one of the things, obviously I am not a software developer. I love technology and I love how it's built and I love how it serves us over, over these decades that we've been using it. But now this year we were able to use AI, multiple times throughout the year to iterate on think about an idea, bring it to a UX and not just like Figmas, but actually putting it into a prototype that worked, testing it out, learning from that, reiterating, trying it again. Like that really bolstered my value proposition
Yeah.
because now I can see and I know when to throw ideas away because they're
Exactly.
not working, right? It makes it so much easier to detach myself from an idea
Mhm.
quicker
Yeah.
than when we weren't able to get it to, where other people could test it and give us
Yeah.
feedback.
I love that, and actually, like, bringing something like the speed to market is nuts as far as the
Right.
opportunity, but I think too with, like, what you were kinda saying around that, like, checkpoint too, around, like, having that, and just how we're using AI is you always like, you're wanting it to be critical feedback too, so, like, keep that in mind. Anything you put in there, AI is very affirming. It's like you will feel so
Yeah.
smart after talking to it, 'cause it's like, "That is a brilliant idea. I'm pretty sure you're the first person in the world who ever came up with that, Brie. Good job." And you're like, "Thanks." And it's a bullshit answer, but it, like, makes you feel but you have to watch that because it becomes quite affirming the whole way, and so it's really just building off what you are. So, like, I will literally go in and say, "Hey, I want you to have this lens and look at it this way," or "I need a critical eye on this," or "This is the this." Poke holes. And so you can't just go self-affirming for your own narrative because then it turns into like your hype friend who's just like, totally sell your house and go live in a car. It's a great idea. So you have to just like make sure that you are, but then you can get these incredible results that we're talking about.
Yeah, I think you're right, and you know what? There's no way I could live without it now,
No, I know.
right? Or well, I guess we did it with before, but I mean, like, going backwards would feel, like, so different.
I do feel like I'm like, I just have no tolerance for like a Google search engine anymore. It's just like, I'm not interested in putting in keywords and then having to scroll and hunt and peck. Like I'm asking a specific question and you're gonna find it all for me immediately. Otherwise, I am
Exactly.
annoyed.
Yeah. Okay, let's jump into the show because today we've got some really great stories. And I think, we continue to have that theme of what's impacting the workforce and how is it impacting the workforce and does the workforce get empowered to make changes? And I think this is what 2026 is going to be about because we're starting again another iteration of AI that will have a greater impact on how we live and work. But, we're gonna continue to break that down for people and starting today. So we use Anthropic and Claude every day. It's the, probably the one AI large language model that we use to really enable League. This over the last couple weeks, they deployed Claude Cowork, and it is really the first time we've seen an agent capability built right into the LMM model. Well, what are you thinking about that?
I think, like, one, it's very exciting in the sense of like, this is what we know AI can do as far as starting to create these continuity and the need to have it's kind of like the iPhone, you got rid of your iPod, your phone, your camera, your this and that, and all collapsed into one thing. I don't disagree though with Garner's kind of position on it, that it's a bit overblown in the sense that you can I think it's like we're not quite ready things that need to happen, in my opinion, in order to do that, and I'll give a really great example of something that you can connect the tissue, but you can't just start replacing and putting these things out because all of these software systems have, like so say your HR or say your that's a good system because I have a good example for that. We looked at a HRIS system, we used one for a little bit, and we were sold on that it had a really good way of managing contractors and employees because we had a lot of contractors and that was how we were running the business at the time. Just to find out like it was absolutely not built in the fact and that's I think that's the thing. It's like startups or like new companies don't always have deep subject matter expertise when it's the tech side. You know what I mean? And like that's certainly what we see in the tech space is like you're really proficient at tech and building tech and you know what you want to do and you've figured out where the opportunity is in that space, but that doesn't mean you're qualified or a subject matter expert in that, and that doesn't mean you're at a point or you have gone the path yet of finding the right subject matter expertise. So what we found is, you go in there in the software, you couldn't handle that, but that actually had huge tax implications. That had huge this implications. You couldn't designate things properly. And so even though they were like, yeah, like they're contractors, employees, whatever, it's you can put the label, say contractors. Like, no, 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 no. There's much more to this than that. And I think since then they've realized and iterated on that. But I think for exactly that reason, so say you have a software that's performing anything, technical analysis, like if they're long-standing softwares, there's a lot of subject matter expertise wrapped into that product and into what it does. It might have regulatory compliance, it might have some sort of a legal, aspect from people or this or that. Like it's not just smash it in. Like there's a lot of different things that could be attached to that. Now, I think AI is gonna make this happen real fast, though. Like, I don't think that it's not gonna get there. I think this hot second, it's not. But I think those things, because we've seen how fast everything can come, it can quickly iterate. If I was one of these companies, I would just be buying their competitor AI. You know what I mean? I'd just be buying them, to be honest, so that I could take them into house and then take control of it myself, because otherwise I think it would be a blockbuster situation for sure.
Good old Blockbuster.
I miss it though. Like, the people miss Blockbuster. I want it back. I will go. It was half the
Really?
experience. I loved that was part of the experience. You go, you wander around. What I don't love about Netflix is you don't really get, and all the algorithms, I just see shit that aligns to stuff I already saw. Like, I
Right.
wanna see, like, you would just stumble on all these, like, things. It's like, "Whoa,
Yeah.
what a weird movie." I would never, "Should we get it?" And you get it, and then you loved it, and now you're into something new. Like, I think that's the thing I don't love about all these way that we're going, is it's just, and I think we see that in the world, not to get all, like, taking it real far, but we're having a lot of extreme swings on all sides of opinions and how people feel about things. I think it's because you don't get exposed to anything that's not your narrative, and we're getting
Right.
really intolerant to, like me, it's like, I don't wanna see all the Google responses, I just wanna see my ChatGPT answer. It's not
Yeah.
great, even though I love it.
Okay, just wanted to let you know there is a search
Yes.
function on Netflix.
Well,
But
what
what about the
time
you
for that,
don't miss
Shannon.
the
It's
"I forgot to
cold.
return it" fee. Come on, late fees.
Yeah, that's true, I wasn't good for that, but Chris is good, my husband's good for that, so, like, he will always return those videos on time, so I'm
Okay.
protected.
Me too, but it caused me, like I had to, like, get it burnt in my head to go to Blockbuster. But anyways, we're way off topic.
How do
Blockbuster,
you
we miss
I mean,
you.
you use Claude quite a bit, how do you think about this? And especially as someone who's used a lot of enterprise softwares
Yeah.
in your time, what's your take, and how do you feel like this is gonna impact?
Yeah, so I'm, like, super excited. Oh, that said, transparently, I haven't had time to go in and actually set up some of the agents to see how it works. I am excited to get that done. I've always said that I would love to have, know that there's, like, little robots taking care of me in the background in doing some of those simple tasks that, maybe get lost. I think it definitely helps in, just keeping certain people organized too. We were talking about yesterday at work how, some of us organize ourselves in different ways, and not one is necessarily better. Well, I don't know if one, we always adopt the one that seems to be the best for us,
Mhm.
but sometimes other people's ways of organizing might seem better than ours. And if a little robot wants to help me behind the scene, I'm happy with that agent helping me. And these ones are bigger, right? Where they can actually go across the organization. We can see opportunities for enhancement and productivity and efficiencies, which I think is super great, which again got spun into two different things. What I thought was very interesting was that how quickly the SaaS stocks on this in the SaaS space dropped in the markets that day, kind of a couple days after that. And we saw many other things kind of happening in the market that week, but it was very interesting how those tech companies, and that's probably a reaction to, previous dot-com bubbles and other tech bubbles. But to your point, like when people actually stop to think about it, these brands have lots of subject matter expertise, lots of brand loyalty.
Mhm.
And so maybe over time, it will start to change and augment what we're using. And maybe we won't have a software for everything. And maybe we'll just have an agent platform. But, I think those things are really, I think they're very positive for
Mhm.
people when used appropriately. I think that's the key, is that this is not about, messing up anybody's life. It's really about, what about if you could do things a different way and then take that the time saved and
Mhm.
use it for more creative purposes, or really thinking about a new idea and how to solve, like, curing cancer, or, really sit down with your kids and have a really engaging family moment.
Mhm.
There's different things you can do with that time
Yeah.
that the agent allows you.
Well, and I like that kind of framing too. Like, I've certainly had conversations with individuals who are like experts in the AI space, and one great conversation, he was explaining to me and saying AI is really like, we don't know. I think that's the thing. Is like, is it going to be like it helps us a little bit, and then we're kind of like consultants, and we have a bunch of little worker bees for us, Is it gonna be somewhere in the middle where it really automates a lot of tasks and there's, like, a significant amount, and then we're more like the decision makers, like swiping,
Yeah.
Or, like, do you go all the way to the end of the line where it is the Homer Simpson button and all you have to do is just, like, keep doing that? And, like, nobody knows on the trajectory of AI, like, how much it's actually gonna impact and where it's gonna land. Is it gonna be, like, less integrated to, like, full integration? And maybe over time it gets there, but I think that's the thing that we all need to remember. Again, these are headlines, and it's a process, and we both come from big industry, banking and oil and gas, and, like, we can certainly say, like, these changes don't happen overnight. They
No.
take a lot longer than most people want them to take, and there's a lot and both of those spaces, a lot of regulatory risk, people, safety in oil and gas. There's a lot of things that need to be considered that are not just you can pump it in. And
Yeah.
so I think for some spaces it'll move quicker, but again, it'll have to do with where risk can be tolerated versus where risk can't be
That's right.
tolerated. And that's how you're going to see speed of adoption. And so
Yeah.
I think as individuals, if that's something that you're worried about, like think about that a little bit and assess that. Like, am I in an industry where there is high risk around this, or is it considered lower risk? And we've talked a bit about like the how am I going to be impacted, but there's a path for that for you depending on, kind of those variables.
Yeah. And you know what I'd throw out there to leaders is like let's be really transparent and be talking to our people about these things if we're thinking about implementing these tools, asking our employees like
Mhm.
what are they thinking about it, where are they, because many of the people that we've worked with have gone in and used some of the agent building tools over the past year to you know look at their email or send text messages or remind them of doing something, right? Like it's not like the technology's brand spanking new, just probably not wasn't being used mainstream like we were what this is now. And I
Yeah.
just think leaders have an accountability to remind the humans that they lead that humans still have the capability of thinking bigger, thinking forward, making decisions, considering the past, but making decisions on information that doesn't exist today.
Yeah.
And AI doesn't.
Yeah.
And so they really need to talk about that and make sure that their employees feel comfortable and excited about the changes versus like, this is just going to replace me.
Yeah. Well, I love that framing too of bringing it to the people who really are at the front line of the work
Mhm.
because that's where you're going to see a lot of magic. Like those people
Yeah.
understand their processes, they understand their outcomes, they understand. And so they're going to bring a lot of creative solutions to the table. I think the thing is to not do that leadership narrative where it's like making you feel like, oh, well, you just worked. Thanks, Tom, for telling me all these great ways to get rid of you. And now you're out and I'm going to get a bonus from it. Like, you know what I mean? It's more, thank you for creating these outcomes of the team. How can I now take Tom and we're trying to reach our target. Maybe we can, or we're worried about reaching it. Maybe we can exceed it. Maybe I can blow this target out of the water now because Tom can now be doing this. And
Yeah.
now we're that much further ahead. And that's really the mindset that we are hoping to see the leadership level get into is like, how do you then elevate that person or put them in a place where they can continue to increase? And that's where the ability to perform becomes that much more
Yeah.
exponential, but it's not in just cut, cut, cut. Because then you're not changing your top line. I think that's the thing. Like you're just trying to shrink your operating expenses, but you're not changing your top line. Like you could be changing your top line by maintaining those expenses, but redistributing them into something else.
Into something else, right? And we've seen some really good success stories about that over the last couple of weeks where companies were really doing a good job of redeploying in a way that was better for the employee, but in the long run actually got better results as well. Right. But that's a really good transition into our second story, which again has to do with Gen Zs because they're entering the workforce. They don't have as much experience and skill as others in the workforce. Feeling the headlines are screaming that AI is replacing them. They're not going to be able to get jobs. But when we actually found this cool story this week was more around them thinking outside the box because the experience that they've had growing up is exposures to a whole bunch of new industries that didn't exist before the internet or YouTube or influencing and product sales through influencers. And I thought it was really a breakthrough in
Mhm.
the fact that we can consider as employers of having people in jobs, but also providing them the opportunity to have, really valuable experiences through side hustles.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's something that's been we've certainly seen in the Gen Zs we've talked with or worked with is it's a new way of thinking about work, and it's also less of a desire to I think there's 2 sides of this for them.
Yeah.
One, like, there is a whole subset where they're leaning into this because, their own flexibility, the way they wanna live their life, they're looking and seeking these kind of arrangements where they can have multiple different things, 1, from an interest perspective, 2, to build their experience quickly over, like, different things. Because that's one thing I will say about Gen Zs is they are hungry, like, they are
Yeah.
so hungry. I am always like, "Oh my god, you guys are impressive." When I was your age, I just wanted to, like, party with my friends. Like, I didn't care about any of these things. But I think that takes it to the flip side where I have a lot of empathy for Gen Zs because they are coming up in a time where it is very unstable. And then, it's you don't wanna make it seem like, "Oh, you're just trying to do this or trying" it's like, no, like, they're genuinely concerned. I can't imagine what it would feel like to be born into a time where it's like, I will never own a house right now. I can't fathom getting enough under me in order to get ahead to own a home. Like, some of these stories that we hear, I was chatting with the talent ed at CED the other day, yesterday actually, and she was mentioning, like, they've had some negative feedback from that generation around AI, and just saying, I hate AI, I hate these things. And I think it's because, it's just feels like it's taking away from them and taking away from their opportunity and creating a sense of scarcity. That's very nerve wracking. And I can be very empathetic of that because, I came up in a time when things were good and you could easily get a job and a good paying salary and a home. And I don't take that for granted or, from my story in a sense that really helped me. What do you think? You also have kids who are facing and thinking about some of these things. I'd love to hear
Yeah.
how you feel about that.
Yeah, it is interesting you say that about the negativity around AI. When you talked about that yesterday, I was like,
I know,
you
I
know
was
what?
shocked. Yeah.
But both of my children have said to
Mhm.
me, "I don't really like AI." And then and then part of me is or my job as their parent is to kinda ease them in and think about other ways to use it versus it's just gonna take my job, which is never the way that they articulated it to me. But I do think about, as we've been digging into news stories and headlines, that is so often the headline. It's like AI is replacing. And then when you read the story, whether it's this one where it's giving people a different way of living, they can choose more flexibility and they may ask to work part time, which we've seen a lot more of.
Yeah.
People wanna work a job that's part-time because and then leaders kinda go, "Well, that's weird," or, "I don't know why they wanna do that," or they only wanna work their 8 hours, and then leaders go, "Well, that's not very good. In the world I grew up in, like, if you only worked 8 hours, we volunteered the other hours or took a reduction if calculated your hourly pay." But what they wanna do with it is they've got another job or they're like, "I've got time set up to go and do my own podcast," or "I'm gonna go through and see the new lineup at Lululemon because I'm an influencer for them," right?
Exactly.
And so as leaders, I think sometimes we forget to ask
Mhm.
why are you so stringent on your hours instead, of thinking that they just don't want to be motivated? Because, we worked with some Gen Zs and a little
Uh-huh.
bias on my own, but they're hard workers
Mhm.
and they
Very hard
really
work.
are hard workers and they're really energized and they bring a really neat dynamic because this is the first generation that have grown up with a device, with technology from day one, right? They have never known not having something in their hand to be able to help them in their day-to-day life.
Yeah. Well, and I love what you mentioned too, just like that reminder to ourselves a little bit, because I think with everything that's moving and changing the way that it is and bringing this new generation into the workforce, I would challenge all of ourselves and those above us who are in these leadership roles to be like, you really got to let go of the I walk both ways to school uphill in the snow with no shoes thing. And like, I get it. Like sometimes it just triggers you, right? Because it was something you had to do. And I was joking yesterday on the call, like, I'm a people pleasing millennial, you don't but I was saying how much I love, like I've heard also that we're called, like, geriatric. That's like the term for like the oldest millennials are like geriatric millennials, which is like, thanks world. That's really nice.
I don't wanna know what they call me then.
Right? As a sidebar. But I think that's the thing is like and I have that too sometimes, you know, people come in and they have a certain way and it just triggers you. But I would say get curious about that and kind of like slow down your judgment and just get curious
Yeah.
and ask questions because, you know, my daughter's Gen Alpha and then even just watching some of the kids that we're close to who are a bit getting older, there's something about these two generations where they were raised to feel valued and to have confidence
Yeah.
and boundaries and like these are good things. These are all the
Yeah.
things that we have spent
I didn't
so
have.
much money in therapy to be out of
I
our
do.
and that's what I say to myself every time I'm feeling challenged with like my kids. I'm like, you will want them to have these as an adult, even if they are inconvenient now. This is good. But it is positive, and I feel overwhelmingly positive about it. And so I think, how can we as leaders now, don't get me wrong, sometimes there's like an entitlement feeling, but that's every new generation.
But every
That was
generation.
millennials. We were
Of
pieces of shit,
course.
we were entitled. Now that we're older, we're anxious people pleasers. You know, it just changes. And I think
Yeah.
it's youth. It's not this generation versus that generation.
No.
It's just youth. You just don't have enough perspective and you're kind of self-centered until you have enough experiences or family or other things that make you think outside yourself. So just lean into that and get curious, I would say, because this generation has a lot of really cool things to give to us. And I 100% think Gen Zs and Gen Alphas are going to be the world saving generation.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and how can we enable them to do that rather than squash them?
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
you think about the people that headlined like times like the Industrial Revolution and the
Yeah.
dot-com era. Those type of people are the type of people we're raising in
Yeah.
the Gen Zs and Alphas. And I think they are going to be the people who help shape the next iteration of workforce and how people work and live together because they really understand this stuff and they have a real passion for
Mhm.
change.
For change.
They're not afraid of change.
No,
Let's be honest, you've put them
exactly.
through a lot of things over the last few years.
And I guess so from a leader perspective, we're challenging you to reframe how you think about this group of people and how they can be leveraged within your organization. On the Gen Z side of things, what's something supportive we can give to them when they're in this position? Either they're seeking it, which is positive, but if they're feeling fearful and worried about it, what can they do? How can they feel like they
Yeah.
have some ownership over that?
You know, one of the things I was thinking about last night as I was getting ready for the podcast today was, well, the ability to give Gen Zs the opportunity to like even be involved in conversations that maybe would have been way above our pay scale at that time of our lives and we wouldn't have been invited into gives them an idea of how we think, communicate, strategize, come to outcomes because
Mhm.
that is the piece that
Yeah.
they don't have exposure to in day to
Yeah.
day. Right. And we've talked about how do we close that skill gap and accelerate those kind of experiences without actually having decades of experience.
100%, 100%. And I love that leaning in. And I think to even compound on that, like feedback on both sides. Like, I
Mm,
think that's the thing. And when you don't know what you don't know. And when you're first starting out, you extra don't know what you don't know. You're a sponge. And so how can you give, you know, not shitting on someone, but like like constructive, but like supportive and like I'm on your side kind of feedback to help them understand. And as a Gen Z, how can you ask for that feedback or be able to receive it in a way where you're actually going to get it? Because that will help. That will help you align yourself to some of these things. Be curious about yourself and I think the biggest breakdown, as always, is like communication. And that's the biggest breakdown that I see in multi generational organizations, especially when you have maybe more like boomer or Gen X kind of thing versus Gen Z. I'm going to say to both sides tone. Tone makes all the difference, especially because this feels a little bit like a parent child relationship, maybe, and might trigger, like, because of just the age groups.
yeah.
So it's going to trigger people in the wrong way and you're not going to get the connect that you need. So
Right.
if you're up here, manage your tone down because it pisses you off when you're parents and it pisses you off when it's somebody who's not your parent acting like your parent. If you're down here, tone up.
Yeah.
You wanna spank someone when they fucking, like, are ripping that, like, snotty little attitude at you, and so tone up. Just be conscious. Tone up, tone down. Everybody. Manage the tone. Like,
Everybody'll be moderate. That's
yeah,
good. We need more
everyone
people
just
being in the middle.
calm down.
I think that actually spins really nicely into our third story, which we're going to take a shot at leaders again because this one is going to continue to agitate us. There was several news articles this past week around the use of AI to then further load on more work to the people who have used it, to how we spoke about it earlier, to easy, to enhance their ability to do tasks. And I just call leaders out on saying this is ridiculous. We're coming out of 2 decades of rapidly increasing burnout. We have, more than 50% of our workforce that has experienced some type of burnout over the last decade. And we get to learn from this. Like, as leaders, what about giving them the opportunity to think, to breathe, to spend time doing things that they enjoy? And I bet you that they come back to work way more productive, way more engaged. But layering on, this was not what AI was designed to do, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. I think this also really hones in on some of the themes that we've talked about just from a general workplace perspective and leadership mindset, in the sense that we're going further and further away from treating people who work for us like people. We are getting all this new technology in, and that is amplifying our way to have results, but we're still in that middle of moving along that. So we have very varying scale of like never touched it to proficient. And I would say the mass population is probably more on the lower end unless you're in like a more tech space. And
Right.
so with that, I think this is just another perpetuation of that trend. And like I talked about, as a leader, AI has helped me be mover faster, better, smarter. Well, that doesn't mean I can now just X my expectations on what a
Right.
human can deliver down to everyone blindly. You know what I mean? Are there certain things that, you can expect them to be able to move faster on that are just now becoming a little table stakes as far as delivery? 100% yes. We're not saying don't hold accountability. We hold very strong accountability of people, but it also means you need to be aware. And like, I think that's the thing. It's just, it can't be the garbage chute. It can't be shit runs downhill. It can't be I'm struggling, but I can pump things out and kind of just like pass the buck and hot potato it down. And then just like let these guys figure it out and then rate. That's just so old school. That's so old
Yeah.
school. I think we should be beyond that. And we have such an opportunity to move beyond that with these tools. So let's use them responsibly and the right way, and not irresponsibly and in a way that doesn't serve you at the end of the day either, because your team's either going to lose, either going to quit, they're not going to meet your outcomes you want. Like, you're not going to get your goals, you're not going to get your bonus, you're not going to get your whatever. Like, you might as well all just get in line because like it's not going to get you what you want.
It's not.
Yeah.
Obviously, on our day-to-day jobs, we have done a ton of research into engagement and how to keep all workers in all generations engaged in what they do. And when employees are engaged in what they do, they produce more, they generate more for impact to the organization. And I would guess they do that in a quicker velocity. When somebody's not engaged, they obviously slow down, they take more breaks, maybe they scroll a lot on Instagram and TikTok throughout the day. They're not engaged in producing what you need them to do, which then further frustrates you. And I think just this is a really great opportunity for leaders to really rethink what it is they're doing with their teams and how they want their businesses to function, because we actually have some capacity to do that with now. And I think the companies that lean into that, those leaders that challenge the status quo, are the ones that are going to really be rewarded as we move through this next year, where sure we're going to certainly see an additional impact of how we work and live with AI.
Mhm. And I think you did that point around like leaders' ability. Like, I don't want it to feel like, because we're leaders ourselves. Leaders are under a ton of pressure, and especially in certain
Absolutely.
organizations. And I would say today, businesses are under a lot of pressure in general. We were just talking about the swing on stock. You know what I mean? Like, the business's footing can move so quickly now,
Right.
and people are at a lot of pressure to get things done. So, one, if you're doing this in a shitty way, knock it off. If you're doing this from a stress reaction, because that's where my mind also goes, is like, this also
Right.
screams chaos to me, you know? Like, I'm just under so much pressure. I'm just trying to and I'm on this hamster wheel, and I'm not equipped to manage this essentially. And I think that's going to be the interesting thing for us because you either step into that space or you're going to have to step out of that space. You know what I mean? Because it's really leveling up what leaders need to look like through this transition and what kind of leadership capabilities that you need to have. So I think it's a good time for like self-reflection, acknowledging it might be really hard and it might be really stressful. Going back to our just calm down and get like, that's the thing, when it's all crazy, sometimes you just gotta calm down and just get some clarity, and it's like, "I'm trying to do 1,200 things." It's like, "Sure, but does it matter? Like, what matters? Probably 5 of them. Get rid of the rest."
Exactly.
And so, start having some of that and leverage this to the ability to do that, and so, I think that's having empathy for leaders who are in the space and trying to navigate
Of
this with
course.
their team, but at the same time, like, how do you know, think about yourself in this space? How do you evaluate how you're performing with this? Are you falling into these patterns and behaviors? And if you are, why? And some bravery, I think, just being really brave too, because I think corporate environments is not a place for bravery. And for those who are brave are usually ostracized. And so there is something to that, which I can appreciate. But like, how do we move through that? Because all we're gonna do is just keep piling up bodies on the ground. So like it's kind of a
Yeah.
problem we all gotta think about.
I think though there may be a unique, obviously this kind of message is for C-suite leaders, right? To
Yeah.
keep to open their minds up
Yeah.
and think about, do they really want to just keep crushing down on people? Is that how they're going to get,
Yeah.
an increase in revenue and profitability? Or are there other ways that AI enables your team to do that?
Mhm.
But I also think the message to those kind of middle managers is that you might have more expertise and more knowledge around this current topic than your C suite. And is
Mhm.
there a way for you to flex your own development
Mhm.
into figuring out ways to help them see the advantages of
Mhm.
change? Like, because if you just keep walking in and say, "Oh my God, I can't work anymore. I can't. There's just so much stuff. I can't. AI is not helping me at all," versus here's some things we could do that would help the productivity of my team. But I also think on Friday afternoons, it would be better if they all had 2 hours for personal development. Here's
Mhm.
what I suspect that personal development improvement does for our bottom line.
Yeah.
That's an example
Yeah.
I'm just making up on my mind. But
No, but you just honed in something I was just thinking about was gonna drop as a hot tip because exactly what you just said is so hot tip if you want to enable this for yourself, either as an individual contributor, a leader, or a higher up leader, as someone who had to do a lot of communicating and influencing to executives, hot tip, they want proof points, whether it's a forecast, like don't just go in with an idea. I
yeah,
think this, we should do it.
yeah,
That is not how you get something done. If you want something decided in a company, you need to either have a little, like, if it's something you can do within your own accountability and decision making, do it and start implementing something and then show results. So you don't go to them until you have something tangible that you can show and say, hey, this is what I see if we do this more. And these are the proof points. Proof points. Or
yes.
it's a forecast or a simulation or a model if you can't get proof points that show this is what I think is going to happen. What do you think? That is how you get a decision made in an organization. So many people in big orgs do not understand that that is what needs to be done to get a decision to be made. So,
And
hot
just
tip, use that.
curious, Bree, what tool would you use in order to enable that hot tip?
You know what? I think ChatGPT or Claude can help you out a lot if you want to do that.
We could do some deep research on this one, right? To get all the right, find out what the industry is doing and where your data is coming from. But for sure, I think it's actually way easier to do that today because of AI than it would have been in the past, where, like, to your point, Google would surface up some information, but you'd still have to read the whole white paper and you'd have to be able to go through multiple websites to find out what maybe the output should be and
Mhm.
what the industry could be doing or what impact I could see as being reasonable when I'm putting together those forecasts or
Yeah.
or simulations.
Yeah.
So You got it first here. Hot tip.
Hot
Autism
tips, drop
override.
them all day, you guys, pick them up.
Okay, so now we got a big ask for our audience, which is talking about, we've been really talking about work and thinking about it and how it's being impacted. Like, what do you really get out of work, Brie? Like, why do you get out of bed in the morning and know that you want to go to work because you're getting
I get a couple facets out of work. For me personally, I'm a builder. I love building, I love problem solving, and I love stretching myself, even into like pretty uncomfortable spaces. I like being like, I have no idea how to do this, and I figure it out. And so I get a lot from that out of work in the space we're in. Tech, it's a fast moving, compelling, challenging, problem solving. I just have such a sense of self, accomplishment, growth, satisfaction out of the work that I do in that way. And then it's the people and the relationships and the people that I work with. So twofold. It's like one personally for me that fills my cup because I like to feel challenged and I like to feel like I'm learning constantly and growing constantly. And so I get that from work and what we do. People, I love connecting with people. I love having this team that works really tightly together and that we have building these relationships. I love creating connection and enabling people to flow together. That is something that really excites me. And I love just like interacting and obviously yakking and talking all the time. I won't shut up. And so there's all of these things that fill my cup in those ways. And that's really what work means to me. It's not something that I feel like I do. I feel like it's something that's inherently tied to pieces of who I am. And that work is a vehicle that helps fill some of those cups for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that why we chose this ask today is that we know that lots of people wouldn't have that same passion and connectivity with their work. And we
Mhm.
are very empathetic to those people. I've led lots of
Been one
people
of those
because let's
people.
be really honest, the environment is not one led by affordability. So obviously a job enables people to live and eat and, clothe their families. That's not lost on us. But what I think is interesting is when people start to think about what they really want out of work and then start to manifest around what that is and how they're going to get it. And right now, because of this change in the ecosystem of work, I
Mhm.
think that those people who really get clear on what they get out of work and what they want to get out of work and stop thinking about it as just a vehicle for
Yeah.
monetary benefit,
Yeah.
those people will advance themselves through this time of uncertainty in a
Mhm.
different trajectory than others that don't.
Yeah.
And so I think
I
that's
like
a thing to do for this week is really think
I
about
like
that.
well, and I think I loved how you put that because, yeah, like, it doesn't have if you want it to be a certain way and you're perfectly happy with that, then whatever, you do you. But I
Yep.
think that is the thing is like, this doesn't just happen, like, I didn't just fall into feeling like this. Like, I wasn't in a place where these things were even given to me either. Like, I'm a
Right.
small town girl from Longview and Okotoks who's just, like, clawed her way into making something that she really wants. But that's through like it's not like what we're doing right now isn't hard. And so I think that's the one thing that is like important. Is like it's not like, oh, I just feel like that because I hold some crystals and I, do that is whatever. And it just comes to me. It's like this is a hard space to be in. It comes with its own, stress and anxiety and hard won wins and hard felt losses. So don't think that this is something that just falls into your lap. But the mindset is where you start, and getting clear is where you start, because then you can start making a plan for where you want to go and what you want.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that yeah, because I think there's a good thing here is that actually for me, hard work is what I want at work, right? Like I have been in jobs where I wasn't
I don't like
feeling
it.
challenged or I felt kind of bored. I don't think I would have described it that way when I was in the role, but when I think back to it, and I wasn't as engaged in those roles, even though, many people would look at those roles and say, "Oh my God, that's successful." And
Yeah.
oh my gosh, you did so great getting there. But if they don't actually satisfy that thing that's inside of you and what gets me out of bed every morning, that I did have to make some deliberate thought and ideas, and I think many people thought I was crazy when I left that really nice, very high paying bank job to go and work in a startup in tech.
Yeah, we're a
No,
little
I
crazy.
don't think most people told me that I was
Yeah.
crazy. Okay, let's wrap it there. So, everybody, the big ask is to really think about what you're getting out of work and what you want to get out of work this week. And as always, we really appreciate you joining us. We'd like you to, if you really like this, please share it with your network, follow us and like us, and we'll see you again next week.
Happy Valentine's Day. Happy Family Day for those that that's relevant for.
And happy President Day for our U.S. friends.
I couldn't remember what it was. I knew it was one. I couldn't remember.
All right. Thanks, Bree. Bye.